can join.
And because they're virtual, everything will be roll call.
Yes, and you'll take a roll call vote for everything.
Will,
Okay,
you
we
can
are
hear
live.
us though? Is that because we're coming through your computer?
Sorry, what's
Be-
that?
You can hear us. Is that because we're coming through your computer speakers because you're on the Google Meet?
No, you're broadcasting in the room, so we can hear you. It's just kind of quiet.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we can all hear you, Joe.
Yep.
Okay.
We
Cool.
are live, Chair.
All right. Good afternoon. I'm Christina Rausch, and I would like to welcome you to the March 19th, 2026 Design Review Committee meeting. This is a 9-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review for projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, the Riverfront, and the hotel overlay zoning districts. This is a mandatory review, voluntary compliance process, with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. Committee members and staff are participating in person and virtually. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, either live or recorded. I will now take roll call. Brian Moffitt is absent. Joe Balkin.
He says here.
Here.
Gabriel Delerme.
Here.
Eddie Dewey.
Here.
Jeremy Goldstein.
Here.
Stu Helm.
Here.
Michael McDonough.
Here.
And Ricardo Sejo is absent. Okay, and the first item is the approval of the minutes from the January 15th, 2026 meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
A second?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, and I'll go through roll call. Joe Balkin,
Aye.
Gabriel Delerme,
Aye.
Eddie Dewey,
Aye.
Jeremy Goldstein,
Aye.
Stu Helm,
Aye.
Michael McDonough.
Aye.
Great. I have the motion is approved. And our first order of business is a formal design review, but I also, before we get into that, wanted to let you know that I will be stepping down as chair as my family and I are relocating. And so the next meeting, you will vote vice chair and chair. And yeah, I've enjoyed my time, so thank you. And the formal design review is 50 Cox Avenue, and Will is going to present that for us.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members of the committee. Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design. I will be presenting this design review for the project known as 50 Cox Avenue. I want to welcome our applicants here today and just say that, we're excited to present this project. It's a mixed-use affordable housing project proposed on Buncombe County-owned property. So we've been working with them as partners as best we can, and glad to be here today to present this project. I'll go an overview of the project, go through some of the staff analysis and recommendations, answer whatever questions you have, and then I know the applicants want to be able to present some information to you all too, and they'll be available for any questions you have as well. So just to get started, I'm going to be referring mostly to the site plan drawings. So as mentioned, the property here downtown with the main address of 50 Cox Avenue, is located across 3 properties owned by Buncombe County. They're used for administrative offices and such for the county, but I don't believe they're active right now. The project is zoned CBD. It's located outside the traditional core. It's in the tallest height zone, and then it has multiple frontages on streets, one of which is Cox Avenue, which is a key pedestrian street, which has some special implications for design guideline standards and UDO zoning requirements. So that's kind of the main primary frontage of the site. There's also frontage on Aston Street, Sawyer Street, and Ravenscroft Drive. And additionally, there's an alley that exists between the property and the existing building to the east that'll be proposed for circulation around the site as well. I'll talk a little more about that in a minute. So here you can see the site plan proposed. Overall, it's a 7-story tall mixed-use building with 203 multifamily units and about 5,000 square feet of retail space on the ground floor. The overall building area is 251,000 square feet. There's also 121 spaces of parking, structured parking, proposed in 2 levels. The building itself is an interesting design. It's kind of an L-shaped building, and it does span over the former section of Sawyer Street, the right-of-way of which was officially closed about 2 years ago. The road is still open today, but when the project is underway and after it's built, that will no longer be a through street. It will essentially be a pedestrian plaza that exists under the building, with the first floor being a recess in that area. It will allow for pedestrian traffic through the site and access to the building entrances under that area, but the street will no longer function for vehicular traffic. So circulation through the site, we'll mention a little bit here, is mainly access to the parking is via 2 different driveways, one of which, I can't see my cursor that well, but I'm kind of gesturing, one of which is down here along Cox Avenue. That accesses the lower portion of the parking deck, and then another access point off of Ravenscroft Drive will access the upper portion of the deck. The 2 decks aren't connected internally. Here you can see the retail spaces, 3 in total, 1 on each side of that driveway entrance off of Cox Avenue, and then 1 just to the north of that plaza space. That totals approximately 5,000 square feet. So the project itself is a conditional zoning due to the square footage being a level 3 project review. It will require review by the Planning and Zoning Commission and ultimately approval by City Council. It is before you today for what we call a mandatory review voluntary compliance measure. So it has to come before you all for review. Your recommendation is not binding, but it is a recommendation that will carry forward through the subsequent reviews for the process. I'll scroll down a little bit here too. You can see some closer-in views of the streetscape plan along Aston Street to the north and then Cox Avenue to the west in particular. This project, it's kind of interesting because it's being designed at the same time that the city-led project for the Cox Avenue streetscape is underway. It's a project that's being led by Capital Projects in our city, in that department of the city. And it is a redesign of the entire streetscape and cross-section of Cox Avenue from Patton Avenue to Southside Avenue. They're currently around like the 75% design phase. So this project team has been working closely with our capital project folks and consultants to incorporate the proposed cross-section, right-of-way, sidewalk, and street tree locations so that when they build the project, they'll be able to do it in a manner that complies with that overall streetscape vision. So I provided some more information about that project in the folder, but it's essentially water sidewalks, travel lanes, and then a uphill climbing bike lane on the would be the east side of Cox Avenue. You can see here the proposed sidewalks. They vary between 10 and 12 feet along all the frontages, and then there is a 6-foot wide sidewalk proposed along the alley connection. And then speaking more broadly about the circulation around the site, um, it's, um, it's a little peculiar with the closing of Sawyer Street, but because there is that alley that runs north, it will allow any vehicles traveling down Sawyer Street to the west to be able to head north up that one-way alley, get onto Aston Street, and then be able to go either direction from there. So they won't have to like turn around or do a three-point turn or anything. So that'll keep the vehicular motion through the site relatively coherent. Let's see. So there are some unique aspects to this project, as previously mentioned. I'm going to flip to the amenity plan package that the applicant sent over to, and they'll probably speak more about this, but just to kind of give a brief overview of some of the concepts being proposed for that plaza space beneath the building. You can see that the main pedestrian bike corridor will kind of be through this area of the site to connect Cox Avenue with the sidewalk on Sawyer Street. There's also some room for, they're calling it vehicular drop-off area and event staging location for any kinds of programming that happens in the space, where there will be some open space area, seating areas, and then decorative plantings and some other terraced seating in this portion of that area. It will be, just a note, that it will be covered by building for the majority of this area. So any kind of plantings or anything will have to be very carefully considered to ensure their viability. Also, and there are some illustrative images. I'll let the applicant team speak more to that. On the third floor of the project, there is proposed amenity area in the kind of central part of the building. There's also a green roof proposed on the southern part of the building. North is to the screen right. That area will have stormwater infiltration and treating retention capabilities in order to collect and treat the rainwater that falls in that portion of the building. So if you go to the floor plans, we can see that illustrated here as well. So this is the first floor plan. It shows that access off Cox Avenue to that one level of parking deck. You can see the recessed area between the buildings on the first floor where the plaza is. The second story demonstrates that access off Ravenscroft with the parking structure that follows along the building footprint to the west and the north as well. And then the third floor plan on top of that parking deck is where that rooftop amenity is located, and then that green roof on the southern side. And then I will flip to the elevation drawings and speak through these briefly as well. Mentioned the materiality proposed for the project. I'm gonna go to the main elevation on Cox Avenue. If I can get it to behave. Okay. Some materials proposed include a brick running bond pattern along the first story of the project. There's also fiber cement siding, cementitious board with metal reveal, and then that glass storefront system that you see for those retail spaces. So you can see those identified on the two sides of the parking garage entrance, and then also the one side on the other side of the plaza. The other elevations, it's a little hard to visualize because of the interesting kind of geometry of the building and the site itself. But essentially, this would be looking east towards, as if you're walking from Sawyer Street to that recessed pedestrian area. You can see that there's a screening element on the second story of that parking structure, and then the cross-section of the building that runs northwest is, that runs east and west is located here. So other views of the building, this is the north elevation. So if you're walking down Cox Avenue to the south, you would see this on the left side there. And then another view at Sawyer Street itself, so you can see the L-shaped building. Another interesting element of the project is that along Sawyer Street, there are proposed to be these kind of townhouse-style units. They're 2-story tall units, kind of designed a little bit, off of the building as kind of a different type of residential space. So you can see those here off of Sawyer Street. There's, I think, 8 of them. And this is a view on Ravenscroft Drive, and you can see that entrance to the parking garage there. And then finally, the view that you probably wouldn't see because there's buildings in the way, but this is the south elevation. So if you're walking on Cox Avenue going north, you would see this off to the right. So I hope that's kind of oriented you all to the site a little bit better. Some other technical aspects of the project. So the project is largely in compliance with standards such as the UDO requirements for the CBD district, as well as the downtown design guidelines. There are a couple of technical modifications to the zoning requirements that the project's requesting, and that will go through review mainly by Planning and Zoning Commission and then ultimately City Council to, if they approve the project with those conditions. One of which is regarding the setback and the street wall height for the portion of the building along Cox Avenue. So in the downtown, all buildings are required to basically step the building back 10 feet. So you kind of have this recessed area to provide relief and not have buildings looming over the street, essentially. It's required to happen based on usually the width of the right-of-way or at a specific height if you're in a certain area of downtown in the traditional core. And also that all buildings in the downtown are required to be 2 stories in height, and this has been interpreted to mean that all portions of new buildings have to be 2 stories in height. This project is proposing a 1-story step back. So based on their design, the floor plan, and that sort of thing, they felt this was kind of the best design and appropriateness for the project. So you can see it outlined here that the retail space is located here. There's the 10-foot minimum step back for the building relief happening right there at that second level. So that would have to be a modification to the zoning since that does not technically meet that requirement. And then
The 10-foot doesn't, or the 1 story?
the height, the 1 story. The 10-foot
So
does.
that's still the first request?
Yes.
This one issue?
Yep. It meets the requirement as far as the 10-foot depth and then along at least 2/3 of that frontage. So that's in compliance. It's just that technically it'd have to happen at the 2nd story or higher. So it's a design element that you all can consider, but the ultimate decision about whether that's an allowed modification would be up to City Council and considered by Planning and Zoning Commission as well. But obviously, it's a design consideration for you all today. The other element, which is less of a design element, is regarding the tree canopy protection requirements. So tree canopy protection involves either the preservation of trees, the planting of new trees, or paying a fee of lieu instead of doing those other 2 items. This site doesn't really have any trees on it. There's really nothing to preserve, and the opportunity to plant is limited. The fee in lieu can kind of add up when you're downtown. The per square footage cost is relatively high compared to other areas of the city. So what the applicant team is requesting is that they will provide as much fee in lieu on site that they can plant. And if essentially if the proposed street trees can count towards that new planting, which it typically does not for projects, then they can meet the requirement. So essentially asking for a reduction in the fee in lieu, but acknowledging that the street trees are new tree plantings that will function in a way as new tree canopy. So that's a UDO requirement that they're also asking for modification for. So those are the 2 technical modifications being requested through the conditional zoning process. As far as the downtown design guidelines go, I won't run through all of them specifically. You can see in the staff report that they are compliant and in alignment with the vast majority of the downtown design guidelines in regards to things like layout, height and massing, facade relationship, materials, and then the fenestration requirements that we didn't talk about, but they do meet the minimum and they exceed the minimum requirement for the windows and doors and other openings requirements for the ground floor and then upper stories of the building. And also, they even meet the recommendations for things like rooftop terraces and green roofs. There are a couple of recommendations in the downtown design guidelines that the project is only partially or not aligned with. One involves, and this is maybe splitting hairs a little bit, but it's just maybe worth noting, involves the elevation along Cox Avenue. Along that key pedestrian street, there is a requirement, if I can get the elevation, that basically the building covers 80% linearly of that lot area. So since the building has this recess, but there is building above it, technically it meets that and exceeds that requirement by plenty. If we subtract that recessed area on the ground floor, it gets right around 80%, just based on my calculations. So just wanted to kind of note that, I guess, that recess does kind of subtract from that first floor coverage area, but it still meets the requirement of the UDO regarding that. It's just worth noting. The other element that is not in alignment with the downtown design guidelines regards the vehicular access, which should be placed along a rear service alley if one is present. That's not the case for the two parking garage entrances, one of which is off Cox Avenue, which is a key pedestrian street, as we mentioned, and then the other one's off Ravencroft Drive. And then finally, the minimum height requirement of 2 stories is not met for that one section of the building along Cox Avenue, as we talked about. So the project is before you today for its formal design review. It was before you all in January 15 for an informal review. A number of comments were suggested and considered by the applicant team. I think some of which were addressed, some may still be outstanding or weren't able to be fully addressed, but those are listed in the staff report for reference. In the meantime, the project received approval with conditions by the city's technical review committee, which is the staff review for technical compliance to codes and standards. And following this review, it would head to Planning and Zoning Commission for consideration of its conditional zoning request, and then finally City Council for final approval. I think that's it for me. I'm glad to answer any questions you have, and we also have the applicant team here to give a presentation and answer questions about the project design itself.
Thank you, Will.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions for Will? Okay. I think if the applicant could approach the mic.
Good afternoon. I'm Brad Tarcott with Boltman Mink. We are the civil and landscape architecture team on the project.
Great. I think we could start with landscape.
Yeah, if you don't mind, do you mind if we give a high-level
Oh, no,
overview of
please.
the site? I
Sure.
would like to walk through the site from an exterior perspective, and then Phil with Tyskeister will give you guys a quick overview of the architecture, some
Sounds
of the
good.
improvements and changes we've made.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, so all of you are familiar with the site based on Will's great description and everything. What I would like to do is kind of work in a counterclockwise position around the site and walk you through the site conditions, our proposed uses and implementations along the streetscape. So we're clearly fronting streets on almost every side and then fronting an adjacent property to the south. But starting on Ravenscroft, one of the things that we have done is There's an existing access easement in which we have provided building relief through that area, so we can honor that existing access easement through. However, the adjacent property owner would like to utilize that, we can work with them on some of those things. But along Ravenscroft and Sawyer Street, our goal is to make roadway improvements from our back of curb to the center line via milling and overlaying the roadway. We're in constant coordination with the transportation team on the expectations of those improvements. Additionally, Ravenscroft is looking at the standard CBD requirements for the paving types, being the scored running bond concrete, and that includes a 10-foot sidewalk with trees and grates. We also have our second-level parking deck access coming off of Ravenscroft to try to reduce vehicular movement and circulation interior to the space. As we wrap around the corner, we're trying to find areas where we can implement landscaping and reduce hardscape, so any of those gaps, we are working towards that goal. But Sawyer Street is one of our largest streets, and it moves downwards in grade into the site. But the other piece of this that we're working through is providing a aesthetic and functional streetscape. I believe Sawyer Street, and I'll go to the enlargement really quick. Sawyer Street also has a 10-foot sidewalk with trees and grates. We have a little bit of flexibility on the streetscape for additional uses, but we're trying to preserve that space for landscaping to try to make the space feel more lively and aesthetic for the users. Same goal here, milling and overlaying to the center line, coordinating with the transportation team, and also providing fire clearance between the existing curb on the adjacent side of the road and our site. So we're meeting the 26-foot clear for fire in that zone. On top of that, we would like to add that we are maintaining the requirements within the CBD of the 6-inch granite curb. It's something that is seen in and along the CBD district and adjacent properties. So as you move into the site, one of the things that the architecture team worked with us on is relocating the trash compactor, and we'll have to give them all the credit here. But the trash compactor was moved off of Cox Street from the last iteration to this plan here and is accessed internally. So we envisioned this to work as coming from Ravenscroft down Sawyer Street. You can see that we've provided a bit of a bump out here that has a little bit of dual purpose, right? This can function as a drop-off for visitors and or anything event related if that were to come up, but it's also giving enough turning radius for a trash truck to get in there and remove the waste. So I'll back out just a hair. We also have the alley in which we are proposing be reopened through coordination of the city and county. This is intended to be a one-way alley leaving the site and entering on Aston Street. The alley is 14 feet wide in terms of asphalt with a 1-foot flush ribbon curb on each side. So improving the aesthetics, but maintaining the standards set for alley configurations, and also providing 6 feet clear sidewalk on the building side for pedestrian egress. Some of those items we are actively working on, but we believe we are meeting all the intents of fire access through that space. Additionally, the building is lined with bollards for building safety and making sure we don't have any conflicts. So moving up to Aston Street, we also have a street tree and frontage requirement there. So this is also a 12-foot sidewalk zone with the same kind of paving style and street trees and grates. One of the things the architecture team has done is given a little bit of relief along the streetscape in which we are able to incorporate a little bit of pervious area and or planting space. So it's something that we feel that we can enhance the space with. We are also suggesting planting a few trees to meet our tree preservation requirement in that zone. So lastly, there is Cox Avenue, which is the main frontage along the site. Let me go to that enlargement. And this is the portion of the project that we are working on with Kimley Horn and the Capital Management Group to coordinate construction and the design of the space, but ultimately this will be a pedestrian-friendly area, working through the grading challenges, the utility challenges that all arise when two projects come together, but maintaining the same aesthetic throughout the site and trying to incorporate as much vegetation as possible. One of the things that we did between the last iteration and this one, and it really impacts Cox Avenue, is remove the through street that came from Sawyer to Cox. Our goal and vision is for that to be more of a pedestrian realm and really limit the amount of vehicular access going through the site. So at the bottom of Cox Street, as you move down, we do have our other driveway parking deck entrance there, but we were able to reduce the additional amount of curb cuts along the street frontage. So really limiting that, really limiting the conflicts between the pedestrian space and the vehicular realm. Let's see. So I can touch on briefly, our amenities are kind of vision for the amenity plaza. As I mentioned very briefly, we did cut off vehicular access through the space. We don't want vehicles and pedestrians interacting at that level or at that frequency. So the pedestrian area on the Sawyer Street side is separated via bollards, but the whole area is intended to be flat and feel mostly like a plaza. So at a very high level, you know, we're programmatically planning this zone. We have not gotten into every single little detail, but we're spatially planning where amenities can sit within this area. So we understand that this is mostly for the residents, but there will be pass-through space along the pedestrian corridor that needs a little bit more coordination about the size and final location. But we see this as a passive and active combination space. You know, people be moving through it, going to the main streetscape, but also relaxing and hanging out in this area on a daily basis. There are a few grade challenges that we are working through, which gives us an opportunity to create a decorative or grand stair type feature coming from the community room down to the plaza. So it can be a very aesthetic feature, but also very functional and usable for the residents of the space. Additionally, we're really focused on incorporating landscape material into the site and providing, you know, activities and seating areas for everyone that uses it. So I'm not sure if you all had much time to go through the design package, but this is just some inspiration, image, and materiality that we're looking through for kind of this urban infill site. Working with a variety of materials and understanding the context surrounding the site. These aren't set in stone, but this is giving you an idea of kind of what we're looking at. Curbed planters, a variety of concrete and wood benches, giving a lot of opportunity and freedom for design to create a very usable and flexible space. And then next we have our rooftop amenity plans. The main rooftop amenity is more active and usable for the residents. It includes activity spaces like an activity lawn that can house yard games, those kind of things. But additionally, we're including a playground, some covered seating, decorative seating, lounge areas, and then lastly, a little bit of a grill station because all apartments need somewhere to hang out and cook food on the weekends. And then the other portion of the rooftop amenity space is focused around the green roof precedent. So it's more of a pass-through zone than somewhere that you can hang out because it's more functional than it is active. We're envisioning, you know, lighter amenities in this space, but still providing something that is enjoyable for the user. And then for reference, that smaller amenity pass-through zone kind of references this picture on the bottom left, more somewhere that is just a pathway that can be used, you know, if you need to get outside for a few minutes, take a phone call, something like that. But it's not intended to be somewhere to stay for long periods of time. It's going to be more heavily vegetated. And then our materials, these are not finalized, but we're thinking a mix of scored concrete, decorative curbs, and lots of interesting patterns in the space, considerations to lighting, and several options for seating, while also being conscious of the landscape material that will thrive in the site. We understand, as you do, that our main amenity area is underneath a architectural roof, so we have to be very conscious of what will actually thrive in these spaces. So I think that gives a decent overview of the site. Do you have any questions for me, or do you want to turn it over to architecture and let them give you an overview of what they've done?
Let's, I think,
Fresh on site right now?
yeah, let's go ahead and comment on site, and then we'll look at architecture
Okay.
next.
All right. I guess I have a couple questions. I don't know where to start, but I guess just starting, this is definitely an improvement from the last one in terms of kind of.
Sorry, Gabe, can you speak in your mic?
Yeah, can you-
They're very finicky. That way everyone can hear and on the broadcast.
Is that better?
Thanks.
Okay. I was saying it's definitely an improvement from the last one. One of the main things is kind of scaling back the building, like you had said, and allowing for more planting area, more impervious surface space. Kind of starting with where you started, and I'll just kind of take the same direction that you took, starting on Ravenscroft. Definitely appreciate, and I'm sure the adjacent building appreciates the room, extra room between their building and the garage. At one point, it was only like 6 feet or something like that, and it was really, really tight. So having 13 and a half feet is definitely a lot better, and it's great to see that you're communicating with that client, with that property owner. One of my main questions is, I guess, the route for the public alleyway. I'm assuming the trash compactor is going to have to come in from Ashton Street.
So we actually are doing the reverse of that. And that is kind of the reason for the large bump out next to the trash compactor. So we do envision it to come in on Sawyer, pull in there. We've run a few turning
Okay,
movements.
okay.
And then the alley is more of an exit
Gotcha.
strategy.
Okay. And I understand the want to have kind of that drop-off space. I just don't see it functioning, because if you're that well, at least, because if you're coming down Sawyer on the right, and you want to turn in to do a drop-off, at that point, you're past the drop-off. Are they kind of envisioning they kind of reverse back in there?
Yeah, ideally, we're trying to keep vehicles out of there. It's
Yeah,
only as needed, right?
Yeah.
It's more functioning for practical
Access
uses.
for the trash compactor. Okay. And there's no level change in that, right? In the open alleyway versus the sidewalk to the left of it, it's all one level?
That's correct,
And there's
yes.
just kind of like a strip, like that double line that's kind of signifying between the asphalt and the pavers. Is that like just a flush granite strip? Is
Right
that-
now, it's just a flush ribbon curb. We
Ribbon
have
curb, okay.
not decided on the material.
Okay.
But yes, it is intended to be flat across that space.
Okay. Those bollards are really close to that building.
Yeah, why are the bollards not on that?
That was kind of my
Material
suggestion.
change
Is that a
line.
code thing, or?
It is mostly for fire. We have to maintain 20 feet
Okay.
clear
Yeah,
for
yeah,
fire
yeah.
in that zone. If we have more flexibility, we will provide it.
So that demarcates a 20-foot there?
It
Where they're
is
kinda lined up on
protecting the building, but yes,
Yeah,
inside that zone, we do have 20 feet clear. It is something that we are coordinating on.
Okay. And then the planting area to the north, that right now is just kind of conceptual. There, you could have, because you had shown some imagery of, you had said some curved planting areas and seating. Do you see that going kind of in that space as well, or do you just see that kind of being a hard line and just planting area versus sidewalk? Or do you kind of see some flexibility happening between the sidewalk and that?
We're certainly open to it. As everything at this level of design is in flux, we're not sure what that space is ultimately going to turn out to, but we definitely want to provide the best aesthetic space that we can.
Gotcha. The ramp underneath the building, kind of in the entrance along the community room facade, you have a ramp on the left, which makes sense, because I think you have about 2 feet of elevation change you need to make up between going from the retail and the community room. You also have a ramp kind of signified over top of the stairs on the east side. Are you gonna have 2 ramps, or is that?
So I believe we just have not fully fleshed out the
Okay.
details. I think the correct location as of right now is closer to the alley side. This area just has not been fully designed.
Okay.
But yes, that's something we're definitely considering as we move into the next stage.
Awesome. Yeah, you had mentioned it. It's going to be really tough to grow vegetation underneath of that building. I mean, I'm sure it'll be irrigated, but at some point irrigation is going to be turned off during winter months between November and January or February. in which it's going to be really, really hard. You know, trees and shrubs and vegetation is dormant during that time, but they still need to take up water over time. So that's going to be tough to kind of accomplish. So just, I guess, be aware of that. That's all I have for now. I'm sure more will come up later, but for now, that's all I got. Thank you.
Can I go back to the townhouses on Sawyer Street? It's up there right now. By the way, I think that's, to me, like the most attractive edge to the building, or the way you all architecturally have done kind of brownstone. Like, but I'm kind of curious why you are linking several of those townhouses together and not bringing planting up, and kind of like, I know the units that are, there's a pathway kind of dug in towards the east to get to that far eastern unit. You are actually going below the sidewalk level, as I understand it. The one to the left of the entrance, the building entrance. So I kind of get that you have to like create a paved entrance to the front door. But the other two to the left are elevated platforms with stair on one end and at grade on the other. I'm just wondering why you wouldn't want to separate those two building entrances and bring the plantings up to the building to create a little bit more privacy?
Are you talking about these two units? I guess you can't.
Those are the ones I think you have to, because you're
Right.
below ground. But if you go the other way, like right in front of that unit, like, why is there an elevated podium connecting two entrances to two separate units instead of bringing landscaping up to the building?
Yeah,
we're really
Brett, I can
struggling
comment on
with
that.
the existing grade of Sawyer Street, so we're kind of maintaining that and tying into it. And I believe it's also with the architecture above, right, maintaining that second level. I can let the architecture team speak more specifically to
So I'm
the
reading that
conditions.
correctly, though. That's
That's right.
The street is sloping down, and there's an elevated platform with stairs on one side and at grade at the other. And you can basically walk on that elevated platform from one front door to the other.
That is
Yeah.
correct, yes. That is a landing for serving the two units that you have to step up to, because the street is sloping pretty significantly down towards kind of the amenity space.
Okay, gotcha.
Brad, can you hear me?
We can barely hear you, Phil.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, this is Phil Keister with Heis Keister Architects. We appreciate everyone's time today. Just to answer that briefly before we get into the architecture, all the ground floor units need to be fully accessible per the funding source. They need to be type B to meet fair housing. So we need a accessible entrance on grade to each of the units.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So all of those have to be accessible? Every one of those townhouses?
Yes, sir, they do.
Wow. Even though they're a two-story townhouse?
It's to them.
Yes, they need to be accessible for visitors.
You need accessible entrance to your two-story unit.
It's per fair housing.
All right. That answers that. Doesn't make any sense.
So I'm guessing the connection between 1, 2, 3, the second and third from the west, it needs to connect. There's a landscape to the right a little more, right there. That needs to connect to the paving.
That would be on grade, it looks like.
Yeah, so everything here is on grade, and then you kind of step up. So the available area outside of the required paths we're trying to landscape, but you do kind of come down into this walkway and step up. Is that?
How do you access ADA wise that?
It's,
The other way.
it's helpful if you show A3.2, I think, the north elevation at Sawyer Street.
Your hatch is a little confusing. Your planting hatch looks like a paving hatch, by the way.
Knowledge.
Yeah, if you kind of zoom in, that was helpful for me.
Again, I think this is really killer view, and it just could even get better, I think. Will, I understand the width, never mind, I'll pick that up later, sorry.
Do you have more comments on site, Michael? No. Okay. Do we have any other comments on site? Move to architecture.
Yeah, thank you.
Joe
Thank
or
you.
Jeremy? Good? Okay. Yeah. And so Phil is online with architecture. Phil, would you like to run through the architecture?
Loudly?
Yes, can you hear me now?
We can barely hear you.
Oh, boy. How about now?
That's better.
Okay, thank you so much. We certainly appreciate the opportunity today and appreciate the follow-up from our January meeting. As always, we're trying to work to develop a better project here for the residents, create really desirable homes for these folks who are certainly deserving. So we do have a very, this is a big project and has a lot of moving parts, as you guys are aware, and we're trying to get the right pieces in the right place at this point. So we certainly don't have a finished design, but we're looking forward to working with your comments to, address everything we can, given this is affordable housing and in a downtown location. So I'll just touch on a few of the items similar to what Brad did on his process of going around the building, just so you can understand the differences between this presentation and where we were in January. So I think we've really touched all aspects of the building here, and again, trying to address your comments and make it a better overall project. Some of the bigger picture items, one item that was discussed, I believe, last time was a definition of a high-rise on the building. We worked with Fire Marshal to lower the building approximately 3 feet and to now have an exclusion from the high-rise requirement. So the overall building massing has been reduced since your last meeting by about 3 feet, and we are now under the high-rise requirement. So that is certainly a great benefit to the project, given the high-rise implications. We have really addressed all the elevations, as I say, if we're going in the same order as Brad. If we start on the south alleyway side, we've increased transparency there, and we've also, as was mentioned, pulled the building back from the adjacent neighbor. We're now over 13 feet, letting more light and air. And we've also included in that upper elevation there the adjacent building suggestion to give you an idea of how we relate to the neighbor. This actually came at the cost of some parking for the project, but we felt like the adjacency and the access was more important. We did lose a few parking spaces, but I think we have a better design.
Phil,
If
is
we
your
go,
parking that you
Yes.
currently have on the project the minimum required, or is it over that amount?
Yes, so I think, and maybe Brad can speak to this too, we do not have a parking requirement for this site by
Right.
ordinance. The parking that we do have is for residents and visitors. There'll be some visitors, but we have discussed with the Housing Finance Agency, who's partially funding this project. They have specific requirements as well, and we're in compliance with their requirements.
Are you in compliance or are you over compliance?
Well, technically by housing finance standards for a family project, we're required on a non-downtown site to have 1.75 spaces per unit. So in that regard, by straight ordinance from them, we are not in compliance. But
Okay.
they, almost on every project that we work on, grant waivers for the parking, given the specifics of the project.
Okay, and just to clarify again, that's a developer requirement.
It is a lender funder requirement of the
Lender funder,
developer.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Meaning
Yes, thank
the
you.
county?
Mhm. No, it'd be the state agency that offers the tax credits that incentivize the development of the project.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No, thank you. So yes, on the south elevation, just to summarize again, we've increased the transparency and also pulled the building back to give more light and air to the adjacent neighbors. If we come around to the Sawyer side, As discussed, I believe of good questions before about access to those units. We've reworked those entries, which you see at the bottom of the page there, and I think enhanced the street kind of streetscape area in that location. We then also have worked with Brad's group and the fire marshal to figure out the fire access along the temporarily titled Sawyer Alley. We actually adjusted the building there to get the required dimension for fire access and also pedestrians. So that is improved as well. If we look at the Aston elevation, as Brad mentioned, we actually pulled the building back there and increased the transparency. We have more side yard dimension and also landscaping. So I think we have a little better feel along that side as well.
Phil, is the
Yes.
garage on Sawyer Street going to be open most of the time?
The garage access,
The door, yeah, I think, is that a coil door or is it?
the door shown on Sawyer is actually for the trash compactor.
Okay,
Yes, if some of you may remember, we had that on Cox at the southwest corner previously, and I
Right.
think rightly so, there were comments about that. So we've
Right.
moved the utilities more to the center of the site.
and so does that door only open on trash day?
Yes, it would only
Okay.
be open when it's being serviced.
Okay, thanks.
What drives the size of that door? It's a really big door. Can we shrink it?
Yes, sir. Possibly. The owner's working and David Williams is on the call today. It's really a matter of the function of the equipment that needs to service that. As you're aware, we have over 200 households here, so they're going to generate quite a bit of trash. So it's really dependent on volume and schedule. But we'd love to shrink it. Just following up on the infrastructure, building infrastructure issue. If you remember, I don't know if we can go to Cox, the Cox elevation. Thank you so much. Last time we met, on the right side of this drawing, we had the driveway entrance. We also had the compactor there, and certainly had some challenges. As mentioned, we moved the access for the compactor and also the transformer interior to the project now, so they're no longer on Cox. And you can see in this elevation that allowed us to break down that southwest corner. We now have a retail space there that is very transparent and makes that gesture to people coming up Cox from the south. One of the comments was also trying to emphasize the entrance to the project, which is really our space there in the middle, which goes to the plaza. We tried to push that back and also create more transparency to each side to adjust that and make it more inviting for residents and also members of the community. I did mention transparency. I think we've increased the transparency on every side, and I believe we are now in compliance with requirements as far as glazing on all our elevations. There was a discussion about the step back requirement being 2 stories. We did consider that. The issue that we have here, as you can see on Cox, is that due to the depth of the section, we have residential units on that second level, and adding additional depths to those makes those very challenging from a programmatic and layout standpoint. So given the elevation change in Cox, we felt like this was a reasonable compromise. As mentioned, we have increased the transparency, also adjusted for the retail entry doors, given the 8% slope of Cox. And again, we're working on things, but I think we have made significant progress from last time, understanding that this is still at a schematic level. I'm sorry for the nickel tour there. I'm happy to answer any questions that the group may have.
Phil, I have a question back to Cox Avenue. I understand the width is for the parking garage access on Cox Avenue is 24 foot as mandated by the city. It also seems very tall. Is there a minimum height requirement from the city that's dictating the height of that garage door?
No, sir. I think we can probably look at adjusting that. As you know, we do usually have a requirement of 13 feet for emergency vehicles. I believe that we could possibly programmatically have the emergency vehicles access the building from the plaza side off Sawyer, and that would allow us to possibly bring that door size down. Certainly understand, not wanting to have a large hole in the building if we can help it.
And maybe push, if you can't decrease the height too much, maybe recess it a little bit, so you're reading the void. And it appears that the door is kind of almost flush with the skin of the building, which just seems kind of harsh on the streetscape. So if there's any way you can kind of use your bag of tricks to kind of soften the impact of what's happening there with that garage door, that'd be awesome.
Yes, sir. So certainly, I think we could turn that opening in a little bit, as you allude to, and create more of a two-part element there rather than just one plane.
And then to the north of that opening, the kind of the whole, the cool part of the project, you have a lot of storefront. I appreciate all the transparency there. That you have one retail space shown, which stretches pretty far along Cox Avenue, and I understand your reasons for rotating the entrance to that commercial space around into the opening, I guess, to kind of energize the pull into that opening. But then that leaves Cox Avenue facade with just a bunch of just plate glass. And, typically in an urban environment, you'd see, I would think, narrower storefronts. That looks to be, I don't know, 40 or 50 feet wide. I see you're stepping down to match the sidewalk slope. I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of soften that with maybe a separate set of doors in case that retail space gets broken into smaller pieces, or even if nobody uses the doors, at least there's some sort of relief, and maybe it's an opportunity for an awning or something. But I mean, I think, like, spatially you're doing the right thing, but it just feels like there's from the opening going north, there's really nothing happening along the sidewalk there other than transparency. So if you could just take a look at a way that the building can better engage the streetscape there.
Yeah, certainly. No, I appreciate those comments. I do agree that I think the scale there could be modulated a little bit to maybe be a little more pedestrian friendly.
Thank you. And one more comment. The south side of the building that nobody really sees has the most amount of brick. It would be great if we could spend that money, the brick money, where people can see it. And I know that's, kind of utilitarian, but when I look at that, that view that nobody really see, I kind of see a lot of brick, which is probably the highest value realist material you'll have on the project. So if there's any way to kind of spread that around where we can see it, that'd be great too.
I'd second that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Yeah. No, agree. I think we're screening the parking there, but we may be able to, as you say, reappropriate some of that to our other elevations where we might get a little more benefit from it.
Phil, back over to Cox. Have you guys considered in your design addressing any of the sound attenuation or other factors related to the entertainment district and the fact that you have a very noisy bus station as well as Asheville Yard across the street?
Yeah, thank you. In our community meeting, the band music venue was mentioned, certainly by the residents who in this area are very familiar with it. We have dealt with that before on other similar affordable housing projects. We have had projects adjacent to a BART line, et cetera. Usually the two things that we see that are most cost effective is to increase the STC of the exterior wall construction and also increase the STC of the windows. I don't know, we have certain constraints with the neighbor across the street. We can't really control them, but I think there are opportunities within the project from a construction standpoint to address some of those items, and that was how we planned on approaching that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's obviously existing, and it's like building next to an airport. We're dealing with it on a project of mine as well, up the street at the Grove Arcade. But I think just in the effort of good stewardship and preventing a lot of pain down the road, and this gets a little out of our jurisdiction, but maybe even granting a noise easement or something, or including it in lease or other. I mean, and I'm not sure what the tree canopy is going to look like, but that does also serve a secondary purpose. If you're looking to limit landscape and tree, that's also a sound attenuation method. So maybe there's just planning ahead and thinking about things that exist in the future about y'all's project.
Yes, thank you. Usually what we do is have a noise study, sound study commissioned at the beginning of the project, so we're getting to that point now, which would give us more specific details on how to address those items.
Yep.
Phil, I'm just curious, you have that green roof that you added, and it's along the existing building, is that right?
Well, we have a resident amenity space on the second level facing Sawyer, and then the green roof, as discussed, was on the south elevation above the parking structure.
So I was just curious, you also have that 10-foot setback on Cox. Is there a reason why you didn't want to include it there as well, besides cost?
Yes, I think it's an opportunity. I think the south side opportunity gives the residents more access because it is off the corridor, whereas the south side on Cox would be just from those adjacent units.
Right. Okay. So the one that is on the south of the building is accessible?
Yes, we have a door
Okay.
off the corridor there for residents.
Okay. Well, I think since you're not meeting the 2-story there, that would be a nice concession to add more green roof.
Yes, thank you. We'll happy to talk with Brad's group about that and see what opportunities we can. I don't know if there would be community-wide access to it, but it certainly is an opportunity to add that in that localized area.
Yeah, just for stormwater and also view. I mean, it's just nice to see greenscape instead of whatever else you may have there. I don't know if it's TPO roof or.
Yes, agreed.
Well, along that lines, just looking at that wall section that is the last drawing in the set I'm looking at, there's a parapet that separates that 10-foot step back. It seems like that parapet could grow in height that would come closer to meeting the 2-story height, at least not story-wise, but just height-wise. And to Eddie's point, might actually kind of buffer those second-level units from a lot of the activity on the street. I know it would block the sight line from the window to the street, but maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. You might want to take a look at that.
Yes, sir. If we did make that area accessible, we would need a minimum of 42-inch high, essentially guardrail there, so the parapet could maybe serve double duty.
I don't think you're talking about making it accessible, right?
No, I'm just,
talking about.
yeah, it sounds like there's a challenge that the north end of the building, the step back's not tall enough. The street level is not tall enough, and that's one way, is to just grow that parapet a little bit taller, which shields those units a little bit from some of the street and allows maybe some more planting and somebody to get out. I mean, someone's going to have to get out there, and I would imagine, wouldn't you have to have a guardrail height just for maintenance?
No, not necessarily. I think on the Artful Way, we have a green roof that doesn't have
Okay.
railing, yeah.
I think, yes, certainly, thank you. We'll certainly consider seeing if we can soften that and maybe working some of that south brick into that area to get some extra benefit.
Thanks, Phil. Any other?
Thank you.
Yeah, while we're on the green roof, can you pull up that, Bolton and Mann, can you pull up that graphic that you guys had done with, about the green roof and kind of, yeah, passive? Yeah, so you have two different colors, one kind of signifying and stormwater, and then the other one being a little more passive with a walkway in between. Can all of that, is the plan for all of that to be, have stormwater retention benefits, or is it just that area? Can it all be retention benefits with a walkway through it?
Currently, it's more the planned south side of it.
Can all of it be like that,
We're
or-
exploring. It's something that we can look into.
Okay,
It's there's a lot of factors that go into what's going to determine how much of it we can make a stormwater feature. But it's something we can explore.
Okay.
I have a question that's for either one of you. When you talk about stormwater retention, or how it's classified, like from stormwater management, is that separate from, I mean, any vegetation is stormwater management, correct?
Yeah,
there's-
but this has a certain layering system
Okay.
underneath the vegetation that holds water and lets it trickle out at a certain pace.
Okay,
And it'd be nice if all of those would be, the whole area would be like that with the walkway through it, rather than a certain area being stormwater and then the rest being maybe just planters or a less expensive form of vegetation. If it could all be like that, then you have double the amount of stormwater retention and treatment with the walkway through it, kind of meeting all of those benefits that you had, just doubling the amount of stormwater. And that goes with any area, I guess, even the light green in the central green roof area, the part that's adjacent to the kind of the dark brown to the left of that, any of the big areas, can that have that same type of layering soil system to increase, stormwater retention and treatment benefits? So just, I guess, think about that. That'd be great.
Yeah, thank you for the thoughts. I think it's something we can explore further with the architecture team.
Quick question while you're still up there. What is the tree requirement for the tree canopy protection? How many trees would you have to plant?
It's based on a percentage. Each tree at each size is given a square footage value. I think large maturing trees were around 560 square feet. Our site was, we're required 10%, which is around 7,000 square feet. So I don't know the exact calculations, but without the street trees, we were about 3% given the trees that we provided in available landscape area. Doesn't mean we can't figure out more creative ways. But as Will mentioned, there's nothing really on site worth saving that really creates a tree canopy.
Right. Yeah, as Will knows, that request is something that everybody requests, that they can count street trees or buffer trees as part of the tree canopy. And so, I know that's something that the city's kind of contending with, but we all have to deal with that. So, yeah, thank you.
Yep, and we're doing our best to
Yeah.
fit additional
Yeah,
trees
yeah,
in
yeah.
where we can. So,
Yeah.
thank you for your consideration.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of space up front, like you had said, even if it's grouping smaller trees together to kind of increase that count. So it may not be big canopy trees, but smaller trees that can fit 15 feet between each other, you could probably get close to hitting that mark, so.
Yeah, I would like to add, one of the constraints along Aston Street is an existing overhead power line. So that's one of the additional challenges is
So even better
we're
just
only
have smaller
limited to
trees.
small maturing
Yeah,
trees,
yeah,
correct?
Okay. Well, they can get pretty close, 15 feet, 12 feet, some of these, red buds and things, so. All right.
Jeremy, Joe, do you have any comments? Okay.
No.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious, this is kind of a county-led project, and I think you're with the county. Just how this works, like, you guys are ultimately the client, I suppose, and there trying to meet some housing goals established by the county, and just curious about our feedback and how that works through the county's perspective, the client's perspective. Is this process making the project better? Are you guys happy with it, all of that?
Yeah, this process is definitely making the project better for sure. This has been great, and obviously been able to incorporate a lot of your feedback into the plans, which is awesome. We've been working with School of Government Development Finance Initiative to look at all county sites. We did this a few years ago. Cox Avenue was probably #1 site that the county owned that we could develop into affordable housing. We have a goal of, I think it's 1,800 units by 2030. So this is just one mechanism or one way that we can kind of reach that goal. We also have the Affordable Housing Services Program and some other things that we're doing. But this is a new thing that the county's never done this before. So we have the Ferry Road project going on right now. We have Cox Avenue and potentially another one as well. So we put out a solicitation and found the developer partner, Harmony Housing. And so Harmony Housing really is kind of managing, the project, managing the process, have hired the design professionals to kind of make sure that this project happens. So we're just partnering with them. We're, property owner, we'll have a ground lease on the property. And then Harmony Housing will, develop the property, the building, and manage it in long term. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, no, that was helpful. I'm like you say, it's kind of a new thing, and I was kind of curious, and it's good to get that word out there that the county and city land and all that, all the pieces are coming together for housing. It was mentioned about the parking, which, affordable housing, in theory, we're not supposed to encourage people to have the same attachment to their car in an urban environment, income challenge, stuff like that. So what's the perspective in terms of trying to figure out ways to de-emphasize the impact of the car on an affordable housing project?
Yeah, I think the site is great for that because we do have private parking garage on Cox Avenue. We've got the public parking garage up the street. We've got on-street parking. We've got all these things. We're located in downtown. The county doesn't necessarily have a parking requirement for this project. NCHFA, this is a low-income housing tax credit project. That's where the bulk of the financing is going to come for this project. They have parking requirements. So we're asking for a waiver from that. That's, as I've mentioned before, it's 1.75 for per unit. We're way less than that. So we're trying to balance providing parking and also trying to provide as much affordable housing as we possibly can. So it's a balancing act, as you know. We think that the closure of the Sawyer Street's a great pedestrian opportunity. I think this project really enhances the pedestrian kind of activity along Cox Avenue, along Sawyer Street. This is an underutilized site. There's not much there but a surface parking lot. So I think this really kind of helps in a lot of different ways, especially the kind of pedestrian activity along that area.
Well, gosh, I would encourage you to push as hard as you can on the financing that is establishing the parking. I mean, you're right across from the bus station. Like, what better project to kind of bulk up the value of public transit than housing right there? So keep pushing hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks.
Thank you.
I got a question, might be for Will and for Bolton as well. Is there a parking deck screening requirement that is required on this for the back side of the parking deck?
Typically, when it fronts a public street.
Okay.
So I think they've provided that on the one elevation that faces Sawyer Street, and then the one in the south wouldn't necessarily be required.
Has to face the public street. One of the projects I worked was the Ironwood down here, the parking deck, going down the hill on the side, not the front side. We were required to have screening trees along that. And then just looking at that space is kind of surprising. I didn't really pick up on this, but that extra kind of like dog leg shaped to the south of the parking deck, is that going to be used for anything?
In some of their images, it shows plantings
It does it?
there
Okay.
on the sky, but I don't know.
So you're talking about in between the two properties on the south?
Yes. Yeah, that kind of, yeah.
I would say this area is still in flux. There's a lot of considerations because of the access easement. So we don't have a full-on solution for that area or a proposed design yet. I think there's just a lot of coordination that still needs to happen.
Okay. I mean, that's a lot of open space.
Seems like everyone would benefit
Yeah.
from it being
Usable.
used in a nice
Yeah.
way, yeah.
Understood.
Yeah, especially since you have access all the way through now to Ravencroft to Cox Avenue. And it could be used also to catch up on some of the tree plantings that might be required as well. That's a significant space, so.
Or walking the dog.
Yeah, dog park, yeah,
Yeah.
right, just a usable space all around.
Yeah, thank you for the suggestion.
I think I would just add to that also, lighting that area would be nice.
Yeah, it's gonna have undesirable activity for sure.
Okay, so if there's no other comments, we will open up for public comment before we take a vote. So I'd like to open up for public comment at 1:47. Is there any public comment in the room? Please approach the mic and state your name.
What would you like to know my name?
Yes, your name.
Jeff Cook. I'm just a humble member of the public.
Okay.
Couple questions. I assume that this entire presentation, including the exhibits, are available online.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you know whether or not there is a packet, someone referenced a design packet in hard copy that's available? Otherwise, the copying charge is going to be astronomical.
I think we can make those available upon request. We can speak more about that. I'm not sure how that's typically handled, but we don't have any, we don't receive any physically, so we don't have any necessarily, but we can talk more about that, and
Sure, but otherwise, all of this is online.
that's correct.
Okay. Second question is, in an ideal world, when is the proposed timing for breaking ground?
I will let one of the project team answer that question.
I could speak briefly, and David is on the line as well. Phil Keister again. Usually, it would be through the end of the year, and I think Brad can talk about the civil approval process, but we would be completing drawings through the end of the year, then moving into closing and a contractor bidding in the spring of next year, with a hopeful start around June of next year, probably with a construction term of 18 to 24 months.
So that's June 2027, to answer your question.
Yeah, thank you. Next, I'm just a little confused. Part of it was that I just couldn't hear the comments from
Sure.
here. But I thought I heard that there aren't any set county or city parking requirements
That's correct.
for a multi-use property.
For
In
downtown.
the CBD.
Yes, in the central business district.
Okay, and then the next question is, I understand though that someone has set some parking
Their
guideline.
funding, which is NCHDFQ, I believe, is it NCHFA? That's correct. Okay.
Is that a private?
That's a state housing finance agency that provides low-income housing tax credits to affordable housing projects.
Right, is the organization private or public?
It's a public entity.
It is, okay. So then I just wondered why you would need a waiver of the parking requirements if it wasn't a public.
It was the waiver with the lender. The lender would require it, and then the county's asking for flex to not have to put in as much parking as the lender requires.
Right, but they don't have any requirements to put in parking, right?
The lender,
The lender does, the county does not.
I guess that's my narrow question. It's the lender that's deciding what the parking requirements would be on a
Correct.
ratio per unit.
Correct.
which is kind of weird that the source of the money is telling us how to build our cities, but that's the reality of it.
I would speculate that that comes from these types of projects typically being more suburban. That would be my
Right, yeah.
assumption, but only because I've worked on a few, but please state your name.
Actually, even on market rate of multifamily, it's usually driven by
By the
lending because the lenders want there to be maximum occupancy. So they have a kind of vested interest to make sure it's parked at market rate. Most developers, if they had their choice, would park less than, now parking standards have come down a lot in most municipalities that are progressive at least over the last 5 to 10 years. But the market rate typically was always around 1.7. But a lot of times municipality, you know, the developer or the municipality may want less, but the developer would drive it because of the lending. And they just, it's a matter of what they really think. And again, more suburban, they want that higher number because obviously they're more car dependent. So it's not atypical, or it's not driven by just affordable. It's just usually by the lender because they have a vested interest in making sure that, property
Sure,
is
that
successful.
makes eminent sense, and 1.7 is sort of a standard.
Yeah, that's even on the market rate.
How about on, but that's on residential, how about on retail?
On retail, it varies. In a parking for a retail in a suburban condition is
No,
usually.
in an urban.
Most urban codes now don't require parking for retail
No kidding.
Again, this is with a lot of new UDOs in the last probably 5 years where they're more form-based codes. So in some cases they do require it, but it's usually a fraction of what's required in a suburban condition. But most urban, they don't have a parking requirement. They've moved away from parking requirements at all.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We did have some public comment regarding parking online, which I think we have reviewed substantially. So to close public comment, unless there's any other in the room, we'll close at 1:52. And then we can take a vote, but I did make a note of some items that we discussed, which we can include. Give me a minute, I've never done this by myself. Michael's, or Brian's usually
Yeah,
here
Thank you for
to
doing
help
that.
me. Let me pull up this.
Should we make a motion first and then
Motion.
articulate the conditions, maybe?
Yes, that would be great.
I will make a motion to approve the project as stated, whatever qualifications, whatever description of the project somebody could fill in later, with the following conditions. Do we have to do that now, or do we get a second?
Should do that for the motion, yeah. Yep,
Do it now.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So here's would you like me to read them?
Sure.
I'll read the conditions. Okay. Reduce the size of the door on the Sawyer garage if possible.
And Chair, maybe phrase them more as like investigate or explore,
Investigate.
since they're not going to be
Yes,
binding per
sorry.
se.
We recommend an investigation. Sure. Let me, yes. We recommend,
Like in advance of developing a project like this, you know how projects like this have a tendency of coming, and then you have a government-owned project, and then you have people complaining about a community asset across the street with Asheville
being
Yard.
noisy.
It's, I don't know if that's makes sense in this.
We can definitely make the recommendation, yeah. Okay, I'm going to start over. We recommend a reduction in the size of the Sawyer garage door if possible. We also recommend to consider plantings under the covered pavilion and their ability to withstand the seasons. Another recommendation is to consider the retail glass, the expansive glass on Cox Avenue, as well as the amount of brick on the south elevation. And then to consider also the stormwater management the full portion of the green roof being stormwater managed. And last but not least, please consider the noise from the,
Granting a noise easement potentially to the Asheville Yard. Or it could be there's a lot of ways to do it, just
we see so much of this, but they're gonna have people that aren't gonna like it, and so be aware coming in, right?
Okay.
So granting a noise easement, it's a very normal thing in airports. You know, if you're signing a lease at an affordable housing unit next to an airport, you agree to understand that you're next to an airport, and you're not gonna create liability or, you know,
Absolutely. I
be a
think some
nuisance.
of the adjacent apartments have that as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
again,
Okay, so-
I'm not sure if that's in the jurisdiction of this committee, but it is a concern,
But our recommendation would be to consider that.
certainly.
Okay, and if we're okay with those, do we have?
Can I edit?
Sure.
Instead of the Sawyer garage, it would be the Cox garage on Cox Avenue, the garage door.
Okay, I thought we talked about both.
The
but-
Sawyer Street one referred to the dumpster access.
Yeah, the garage door on Sawyer would be the dumpster door.
Right.
And then the door on Cox would be the parking garage
Right.
door. So there's
Entry.
2 doors to consider reducing the scale.
And then lastly, utilizing that space to the south as active use space, potential lighting, and increase or decrease impervious space by increasing vegetation.
and
Michael,
then-
you accept those friendly amendments to your motion?
I have one
Okay.
more.
Go for
And
it.
then also considering adding some type of vegetation on the Cox Avenue setback above the brick. And if you, yeah, go ahead.
Sounds good.
So that would be a motion, and then we'll need a second.
Those last two, yours and that last one that you just said.
Yep, mine was utilizing the space south of the parking deck between the parking deck and the adjacent neighbor, kind of that dog-leg L-shaped. It's a pretty significant space, so utilizing that space for an active space, outdoor space for the public or the patrons on the property. Decrease the impervious, so if there's asphalt there, cut it out and replace it with vegetation so it can absorb stormwater.
Did you say something about lighting?
Also, yeah, also adding lighting back there for safety.
Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay, you had 1 second, Jeremy. Yes, I said vegetation over the Cox Avenue setback. So to consider whether that would be feasible.
Thank you.
And it sounds like we have a motion and a second.
We
And
do.
so I will now take roll call as the vote. And give me a second to pull up all of your names. Where has it gone? Here we go. All right. Joe Balkin,
Aye.
Gabriel Delerme,
Aye.
Eddie Dewey,
Aye.
Jeremy Goldstein,
Aye.
Stu Helm,
Aye.
Michael McDonough,
Aye.
and Ricardo Sejo is not here, and I am an aye. So it looks like we have an approved motion, and I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 1:59.